Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs or at Justin Bizzarro. Again, that's 2 Z's, 2 R's. You can also find the growing food and beverage, nutrition, farming, hospitality entrepreneur community that we're creating, Gorilla Brave. You can find that on Instagram as well. And also, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be gorillabrave.love. If you're seeing it in the red and black format, it's the old format. There is a new format that is being released with updated information and a much better format based on everyone's feedback. So by the time this comes out, that should be up. Sorry, I'm twisting my own tongue. With that being said, I have Mike and Renee from Big Mike's Jerky with us from St. Charles, Missouri. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Yep.
So, why beef jerky? I mean, it's definitely an interesting path. Consumer packaged goods. Let's talk about how you got from Little Mike and Little Renee to Big Mike, literally, for the jerky. And let's talk about that journey, your backgrounds a little bit leading up to being sort of entrepreneurs in this way in jerky.
Yeah. So I guess it all started back when I was, backpacking and stuff in college and high school and those kind of things. I used to always want to dehydrate some fruit and dehydrate meat, jerky, those kind of things. But it really started taking effect when I was in the military, being able to take, the beef out into the field and, be able to eat it. Eventually, we got to the point where my wife and I were on a paleo diet, and so we were looking for snacks that were sugar free. And we love jerky when we're traveling and those kind of things, and we just couldn't find it. So we finally decided to do some research and figure out how to make beef jerky that was, with not a lot of chemicals, that was sugar free. And we ended up with our current recipes and our current philosophy around, keeping things as simple as possible. And by being sugar free, by default, the ingredients we use, we ended up being, soy, gluten free. And some of our products are we're all sugar free. And then a couple of them, the newer ones, are no sugar added. So we just love jerky.
Backgrounds. What do you guys do outside of jerky? Let's talk about that a little bit. Backgrounds, setting you up, teeing you up to be in this space.
Sure. My background is I've been in information management, project managers in the IT space. And then on the side, a lot of outdoor activities, a lot of workouts, those kind of things. Renee?
Yeah, I am also or have been a project manager, quality analyst, that sort of thing. Of course, tagging along to most of the outdoor activities with Big Mike, camping and dragging the kids along when they were younger, and making some of the jerky, certainly taste testing some of the jerky.
The skill, talk to me a little bit about life skills that translated into jerky, because I mean, it's not easy building a brand. Let's talk about how are you building this brand? Let's talk about skills that are carrying over. How are you marketing it? How are you selling it? How did you get the idea to turn it into a business? There's a lot of questions I just asked there, but I think, I'll help walk us through it. But let's talk about what that's like. How did you okay, let's turn this into a business?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I've been making jerky quite a while. I should take it into work all the time. And it just got to the point where people decided they kept eating it, kept coming by, snacking on it. And I kept running out of it all the time. And so jokingly, we said, well, why don't you just start selling it? I'll buy it. And so we started looking into it, based on, being the kind of the project manager side of things, and Renee with the quality, we started laying out all the activities that we needed to do in order to make this happen. The biggest challenge was just learning a lot of the rules from, being able to sell something on whether it's at a farmer's market, whether it's selling it online on your website or trying to, selling it on Amazon. Each one of those have all sorts of different rules from the FDA, the USDA. And that was our biggest challenge initially, is just trying to figure out how can we go from our kitchen where we do all the experiments with the different flavors and try to come up with the right profiles to actually getting it packaged and then being able to sell it. Jerky being a kind of a restricted product because it's meat based, the government likes to be able to track from hoof to package. And so knowing that and understanding what a commercial kitchen is and those kind of things is, we ended up doing a couple things. One was we partnered with a packaging company that actually takes our recipes that we've customized and creates the jerky for us in USDA certified plants. So we were able to leverage their processes and their certifications in order for the packaging. Once we kind of understood that piece, then it becomes marketing. Again, a whole nother space that we've had to kind of learn. Coming from the IT world, we kind of understand some of the technologies associated with like social media marketing, with website building and those kind of things. So we've been able to leverage a lot of that background. Renee's been fantastic on the quality side of things, helping us with making sure that the product looks right, making sure, and obviously we all do the taste test on it every time a new batch comes out. But the quality around the packaging, every package has to be, the labeling has to be within the right specifications. And so every time we come up with a new product, a new flavor, we've got to go through and kind of create that piece. The second piece, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing that Renee's been doing a fantastic job on is really coming up to speed on the social media marketing pieces, understanding, what we need to do, how often we need to do it, what the content needs to be, how dynamic it needs to be. In recent months, I should say, we've started doing things like doing our newsletter. And even over the last 6 months, that newsletter is developed, where we learn things about how to pull or get more engagement from our readers, using things like polls or coming up with a special deal for that month, those kind of things. So I'm pause there and see if you've got any questions.
No, so there is a relationship, a feedback loop that you are creating with your customers. I was going to start to get into that question. You kind of answered it as we continue, but I want to just talk about strategy there. Is it something you've always done in a previous life or learned in your systems management, how to take data, how to take feedback, how to sort of make it measurable? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think it's important. I don't think everyone comes to that general consensus overall in business. In your case, I think they got to market, and they forget to analyze the data. But talk to me about that, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely on. And, coming from the IT space, we love data. And we've got all the connections, with the Google, with, Facebook, with Instagram, all the analytics are out there. We get reports on a weekly, monthly basis of how well our Google analytics are, how well we're doing on Google, how well we're doing on Bing. But that's been a challenge because we get the data, but then we've got to figure out what that means. You've got your clicks, you've got things that turn into orders, and trying to trace the process.
Carts, all of that wonderful. How many views doesn't necessarily translate to additional orders, and trying to understand where that sweet spot is.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I'm really starting to come out, which I told myself a long time ago, is don't be afraid to ask your customers some of the hard questions. We do farmers markets, local farmers markets. We work with the local military base on the exchange there. And as clients, taste our product, it's amazing, what the conversion rate is when they actually get a chance to taste it. When we get a chance to meet those customers in a different setting, and we start asking the question is, why is it you don't buy from the website, but you only buy it when we're there in person type of thing. And it's interesting the kind of the responses we get. And so we're starting to ask more of those kinds of questions and trying to tweak our engagements, whether it's the website, whether it's a newsletter, our pricing. We get some great feedback, flavor profiles. Some people like them, some people don't, and that kind of thing. So it's with the amount of data that we collect, our challenge always is making it actionable.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just, and then testing it and then seeing what it's actually telling you about your business and everything like that. I think there's a lot of those things there. Let's talk to me. I want to go down talking about more of the data and stuff, but first I want to go back to something. Talk to me about choosing a co-packer, because it's a big step. You're trusting them with your business, with your money, with your brand, packaging it. Talk to me about going through the process of choosing one, finding one, building that relationship, testing your recipes. Let's really dive into that, because it's not an easy process, because you're in acidified foods in a lot of ways, and it's a different category in terms of health code. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it really is a challenge, especially when we're starting out small. A couple of years ago, we didn't automatically want to scale up to 1,000 pounds of jerky a month, or whenever we placed an order. So we had to find kind of a small scale boutique place, which we did. We looked at again, half a dozen different folks, and then we found out the small scale one we're doing great with the recipes, and you're starting out. It's really about getting the taste profile, because I got a certain profile I'm expecting, and they have a certain profile that they, because they make lots of different types of jerky. And so they're always kind of pushing back a little bit. Well, what about this? What about that? So it takes a lot of time and a lot of iterations to go through. We were all set up with the one. We were doing business for a while, and then we ended up they had some issues, some logistics issues. We ended up switching over to another vendor. And so there was another relationship we had to build with the packaging, with the co-packer. But it's really a two-way street. They have a gentleman that does a fantastic job on the recipes, because our recipes are filled out. They're filed with the USDA to get their certification that all the claims we put on the packages are valid. And so, but there, when you different, the stuff I use at home to create my recipe, the McCormick's or the liquid aminos are different than what they use at the manufacturing plants. They, buy in bulk, and they're different concentrates. So it takes us a while to kind of get that profile. Once you get the profile locked in, then it's about the quality. If you order, 1,000 bags of jerky, what you want ideally 100% of those bags of jerky to all be absolutely perfect. The right, moisture content, the right chewiness, the right flavor profile. But typically what you end up with is some percentage of it's not quite exactly what you wanted. But you just try to manage, that's on the lower end side of things.
Yeah, the ingredients are interesting, because I agree with you. There are a lot of co-packers want to use what they already have in-house. It makes them easier to manage, but you're trying to create something different here. And I think that's key. Talk to me about the ingredient process. Talk to me about finding them. How should I say, auditing them, as they call it in the USDA, but you're basically doing your due diligence on it. You're searching for things that meet the quality that you want for your brand, I would venture to say. So let's talk about that process. How do you manage that? How do you look at it? Because jerky can have a lot of ingredients.
Right. Well, one of the things is, our average ingredient content for our jerky is between 8 and 10 ingredients. And we have no artificial ingredients. And we do that on purpose. One is to keep it simple, because if we start adding and tweaking things, then the profile gets kind of hard to manage. So they're pretty common things you would have in your kitchen today. And so when we're working with these guys, a lot of times we get a lot of pushback on, we don't add sugar to our product or other ingredients that artificially inflate the water content of the beef. So, and that's a challenge for co-packers, because they always want to be able to add some kind of sugar or some other things to increase the water content. so they don't have to manage the drying time as carefully. And so we don't want that in our product. Again, keeping it simple, keeping it as clean as we possibly can. But when we're working with the sample guy, the guys that creates the samples for us, it's because we're so far apart as far as distance goes. We'll send him the recipe that we have in our kitchen. He'll convert it using the formulas that he uses, and then send it back to us. And then we taste test it. And he'll send us a pretty good sample of the product. So we'll end up with almost like 10 pounds of jerky that we're taste testing. We give it to all our friends and those kind of things. But it's amazing how we're able to provide a description back to him. And it's like, this has just got just a little bit too much saltiness, or, the pepper is just not quite strong enough, or, like the soy flavor is off. And we provide descriptions back to him, and he's just been fantastic at being able to tweak it, send us a new one. And typically within 2 or 3 iterations, we've nailed it. The biggest challenge I have, at least coming into this, is when I start moving into flavors that have acidic. So we very much want to start making things like chili lime. My wife, she wants cilantro lime chili.
Yes.
We have a debate over the cilantro piece. But things that have like lemon or a lime type thing, we try making it at home, and it ends up being like ceviche beef, because the acid, will cook the actual beef. So we're still working through, and this is where I need to start leveraging like the guy at the sample place to figure out what product they would use to add lime flavoring to the beef without actually cooking it. And I want to make sure it's not some chemical that's artificially created.
Yeah, are you using a dry powder versus a liquid?
We've tried a dried powder, but the one we tried didn't work well.
Yeah.
So yeah, a buddy of mine was out on a fishing trip, and the guy was very much into cooking, and he said he did some research and sent me some articles on some dried products that we could take a look at. So that's kind of the next thing on the list. Is we kind of moved from beef, we did a turkey, and then we got tired of people telling us that we're vegan, so we decided we came up with a mushroom version. And our next one is we want to move into one of these lime flavored ones.
Chili lime, or I'll renege on the cilantro.
So what flavors do you have now? Let's go through those real quickly and sort of how you developed them and why those flavors.
Oh, there's a great story there. So we have original, which is basically just soy flavoring, garlic, onion, smoke flavoring, and just a little bit of pepper. From there, we move up into our black pepper flavor. We call it just peppered, which is everything that's in the original. Plus, we add a lot of bold black cracked black pepper. And then from there, we added cayenne to the black pepper to get our spicy. So the profiles just kind of moved up the ramp there. From there, we got a lot of feedback talking to folks. Hey, we need something sweet. So the challenge was, how do we create like a teriyaki flavor without sugar? We came across we use coconut aminos a lot. And so, but we added coconut aminos to the original and took out the soy, added a little bit of ginger, and then we ended up with our teriyaki style. So there's no sugar added, very low sugar type of thing. So it stays within our profile. And then I'm not a big fan of this sweet, so I couldn't leave it alone. So I took the teriyaki and I added the cayenne to it. So now we've got my favorite, which is the sweet hot version. So those are the ones we have now, and then we added turkey original, and then we added mushroom. We call it original, but it's really a black pepper mushroom.
I love it.
And it's actually,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
it's actually made with portobello mushrooms. We've had a lot of people ask if it was a mushroom flavored beef jerky, which sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But no, it's fully vegan and actually quite tasty.
Yeah. The fun story I was going to tell you was, so when I originally created the recipe, it was basically the black pepper recipe, and we were eating it and loving it, and that was going to be the original. And then my one daughter, Sarah, we let her try it, and her eyes just started watering. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody in my family could enjoy the jerky. So we ended up taking the pepper jerky, calling it peppered, and we took out all the pepper and made the original version so that everybody in the family could have, some of the jerky.
That's awesome. I like this a lot because you're letting it sort of get its own life, but you're also letting it listening to what's going on there. Let's talk about now selling it. You've developed it. You have the flavors. You're starting with a co-packer. You vetted co-packers. You found the one that's in the bag. You've got your USDA stamp of approval. Now, what do you do? How are you going to get this out to everyone?
To me, this is the hard job. This is the part that we always continue to struggle. So we started out doing farmers markets. My wife, Renee, she's gone to a number of farmers markets. And so we started out with some of the local smaller ones. And we do real well. It's amazing, if we stop somebody, get them to try it, literally 90% of the people will buy at least one bag or more bags. It's just got that kind of reach. So we're trying to figure out how do we translate that experience into online, and get it out there more so that people can, obviously, if they experience it, they'll enjoy it. They'll want to buy more of it. So we've done a couple of years worth of a lot of farmers markets. I mean, we're expanding out into the bigger farmers markets in a local area. But the challenge that we're starting now is to start trying to push into more of the retail chain. So we've got a number of local places where we've got our product placed, from gyms to a couple boutique places. We're working right now trying to negotiate our way into some of the bigger retail chains in the St. Louis market. And our plan is for this year is to get at least one of those. But that's a whole nother learning experience moving into the retail chains. There's things like what they call DSDs, direct store delivery companies, category managers. So we're starting to learn all about the retail world, whether it's, a grocery store chain or a convenience market, and kind of the rules and what you need to do to kind of work in that space. So that's one of them. We're continuing to drive our online presence at Amazon with some of the marketing that Renee's been doing. We've been getting a bit more hits on the Amazon side of things and also on our website. So we're starting to see that progress, both in our analytics that we talked about earlier. We're starting to see some better analytics, and that's turning into some additional sales and things that we're seeing online. And I think that's kind of our biggest challenge right now is just the sales side of things is getting in front of people, getting in front of the right people and making the right conversations. And I'm sure that as we do that, as we get into the retail chain, there's a whole nother inventory, logistics, financial activities that need to occur in order to support, a 20,000 unit business with a local grocery chain type of thing.
I mean, so you're how much time that's the wrong question to ask, but I want to just clarify, like you're working basically two jobs here. You're creating a business in one and you're still working your other job in the other. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so how do you balance all of it? Because it is time consuming to be an entrepreneur, and you're balancing it right now, trying to grow something large enough for you guys to take the leap, I would assume ultimately. But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we struggle with it all the time. Renee's recently retired, so it gives her an opportunity to spend some more time. And I think that's really the time that she's now able to put into it's really shown because of with the marketing, and because we're starting to see incremental increases. As far as the stuff I'm doing, I do a lot of the logistics side of things and kind of the administrative and vision work. So it's evenings, it's weekends. Because we're kind of a husband and wife team, we don't necessarily have to have dedicated meetings to get things done. We're always talking about stuff. Just before this call today, we were talking about the newsletter, and we're just bouncing ideas off each other because we kind of passed each other in the hallway. I was in between meetings and, she had a couple minutes. And so we're kind of working that way. Weekends get busy, especially as you get towards the summers between, doing a lot of the administrative work for the websites, newsletters, those kind of things, and then going to the markets and preparing for those. So It's busy. I mean, I think since we wrapped up, the kids have all been off in college, all got their own jobs now. So we do get to spend a little more time, have a little more available time to focus on the details behind the business.
Talk to me about, well, I want to make note of this first because of Renee's marketing. It's how I found you guys. I think that that's an important piece. It's how we were able to connect on the podcast, the social media, the uptake, stuff like that. So I'm sure there's part of that direct correlation, me being able to hear about you guys in the first place. Let's talk about, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, because I mean, exactly right. Because, I don't know what happened, but something after the first of the year, we got, several interesting communications about podcast support or other, type of support people were looking for. So the only big thing that's changed was, Renee's attention to the marketing side of things.
Yeah, I think there's an energy there for sure. Let's talk about the newsletter a little bit. How do people get a, because beef jerky is a big deal. It's a big category. It's a very large consumer category. It's $1 billion plus category. I think it just crossed over 3 billion if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, it's part of a giant snack foods category, but it holds its own category. It's that large. And that's just US. On an international level, we're talking much larger as beef jerkies become more palatable beyond just the Americas. It's something that we've seen, different versions of biltongs, things like that. So like this is a category that's going to stay and it's going to grow very large, and it's an easy way to transport. It's lighter. It, has shelf life, a lot of dense calories in it, easy to move. As we just discussed in this podcast, that's how it all started to begin with. It was easy to take with you.
Yep.
So let's talk about the newsletter, the idea behind it, what sparked it, why do it, what information's in it, what do people get out of it, and how do they sign up for it?
Yeah, what was always on our list to create a newsletter, and then the challenges were, what are the mechanics behind it? What are all the pieces that need to go into it? And, for me, when I get a newsletter, there's got to be some value in it for me. So what we try to do within the newsletter is create kind of a personal connection. It's like, what's going on in the Big Mike's world? From, if we're traveling a bunch, or if we've got some new products, or what maybe more, markets we just finished up, but just kind of get that personal touch in it. Then I always try to come up and develop an article around beef jerky. So, whether it's about the benefits of beef jerky for older Americans, older individuals, or whether it's a great snack, and why it's a great snack for kids. The recent one I did was just a comparison between like Big Mike's jerky and kind of the industry average jerky, and how much of a difference there is in what I consider the quality between the two products. So that there's always some kind of article that we put in there to provide some additional information to people. Then we started adding, this was kind of some feedback we got, I'm not sure from who, but to put some kind of poll in the newsletter.
Just to get some feedback directly. Yeah.
And get interaction. The first one we did, we sent it out to about 400 some odd individuals newsletter. And we got, here's the analytics, right? We've got about a 40% we got almost a 60% open rate. And then of that, I can't remember what the exact number is, like a 25 or 30% click rate. And then, the first poll we put out was just, what flavor do you like? And, we've got 20 responses. So not huge, but we're learning, as we can leverage that poll to get some feedback other than what we get from our face-to-face conversations with people. And then we try to let people know, partnering with, where they can get us, whether it's at the local place, your whistle stop, or whether it's at our local gym, or, partnerships up. Like we'll be listing your podcast on our next couple newsletters, just again, figure out how we can partner with more people and get some more clicks for both us and our partners.
Yeah, I love it. Where do you hope this goes strategy wise? You're starting to point in a direction. You're starting to lay out, sales strategy, customer service feedback strategies, polls, newsletters. Like, so you're starting to build all the pieces of the business that are necessary to actually have a longevity of a business. Because without them, if we rush it along, we don't build the necessary pieces. Let's talk about a little bit of where you guys are hoping this goes. What's the mission here? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously I'd want to grow the business and be able to hand this over to my kids for, their future. But I think from a mission perspective is I want to be able to get a good quality product in people's hands that they can share with friends. I think not jokingly, but in all seriousness, I would love to be able to get pictures from people in the military that are sharing Big Mike's jerky in the field. I very much want to give back to the military. I think it's a strong passion of mine, and if I could find ways to do that, that's what I want to do. It's kind of a shorter term pictures is I'd like this year. I think it's our third year selling online is get into a major retail chain, and then from there move into more of a national presence. I think we've got a niche product because I think there's a big push, I think, in the US around people who are looking for clean food that don't have a lot of chemicals associated with it. And there's a lot of challenges in the US with, diabetes, with gluten intolerance. There's now this big thing around people allergic to beef. So we're trying to hit more of the healthy market. And I think and educate people on what the difference is between, Big Mike's jerky and why we consider it a healthy, clean snack versus 90% of the rest of the market. When I do go out there and I search the products periodically just to kind of see what's going on, it's hard to find a product as clean as Big Mike's jerky. Because even if you find ones that are sugar-free, they'll have a sugar alternative, or they'll have some kind of, preservatives in it. So they may say, yeah, they're sugar-free, but when you read through the ingredient list, they're not quite. Or they say they're gluten-free, but when you read through it, they have soy, true soy sauce or something in it. So the market, I think, is trying to figure out how to get Big Mike's names attached to the healthier choice.
Yeah, because I agree with this a lot. I think one of the things that is the problem with the beef jerky industry, I'll label it as a problem or an inconvenience, is the amount of preservatives, false ingredients, by false, I should say, man-made, not natural, chemicals, things like that are not natural food things to begin with. So I think that's, it's a whole battle there. It's a battle in any industry in food or beverage to try to fight it. But in beef jerky in particular, I think is an interesting one. But I do agree with it. I do agree it is the right path. I do agree it is necessary. And I do agree that for a healthier future all the way around, sourcing local ingredients, whether it's better for our environment, by having multiple different ingredients going into a product. So multiple plants are grown, having multiple different things, chicken, beef, mushrooms, in order to have diversity in both proteins, plant and animals. All of it, I think, is important. Plus, just keeping a clean diet for humans and our longevity and our legacy is pretty important. Keeping in mind that what we put in our food to add shelf life or add shelf life extension is only something that's started over the last 100+ years, not more than 200 years ago. So that's all. That's just what I want to anchor for the audience. Packaging, design, logo, artwork. Let's go through all that, because you're building a brand, you're building a CPG, like you print the bags, you have to print them in lots. So if you make a mistake, it's like, so you're trying not to do it. So let's talk about all of that.
Right. Yeah. Great question. Because just recently I've been looking at kind of, doing research, searching the web, searching the, Amazon, different things, looking at other people's jerky products. There's this big push right now to go to completely printed bags, where right now ours is basically a clear Ziploc bag that we put a label in the front so that you can see the product. And we use full slices of beef, so you can see the full slice of beef in there as opposed to shreds or cut up pieces, as they call it. And so I'm looking at the market right now and going, wow, everybody's moving to these pre-printed bags, and a lot of variable different sizes and that kind of stuff. And so we've been looking at that as trying to figure out do we need to move away from labels and go to pre-printed bags. Haven't done the investigation yet, but definitely looks like where the industry is going. I guess the cost of doing pre-printed bags is going down. But to your point, we're using labels right now. So, and obviously that's got to go back and forth several times with the co-packer, because it's got to be a certain size, certain dimensions, and then they get the labels printed, but they print them in 1,000 increment, 2,000 increment orders. And if you decide, okay, hey, I want to use a different font, or I want to change the size, the ounces, now you got to throw those all away, and then there's a huge cost associated with it. And that can be a challenge. I mean, one of the things we did early on is when we had the first co-packer, we did a vacuum pack, and it was a very flat package, and she was able to do it. When we moved over, we tried to do it with the new co-packer, and it came out and it looked like a baseball. You couldn't read the label. I mean, it was just disastrous. So we had to move away from that. And when you're looking at the industry, again, as we're doing a lot of comparisons to we see in the stores, we look at other packages. And some of the feedback we've gotten from retailers is you need to figure out how to make your bag look fuller. Do you use a smaller bag so that the product looks fuller in there? Do you add more product? And of course, if you add more product, then you've got to take in, change your cost structure associated with it. So we're constantly looking at all those different components along with pricing. One of the things that we started out, again, we just had somebody put together a label for us. And then by default now, we're kind of happy to carry that forward. But we're making subtle changes as we have different graphics designers. We have some different people providing us input. We talk to the users, making some subtle changes to the labels. One of the things we struggle with is, we have every flavor has a little bit different color. So if you look at like all of our original flavors, all have the same color scheme as far as the camouflage package goes. But one's maybe a woodland package, one's a feathers for turkey. And then we have another one, which is actually the mushroom camouflage. So we kind of thought through that piece and then carrying that through to the websites. So we just recently had a complete website redo where we changed the color schemes and the fonts. So we start having, that brand to start matching up with what we want with what's on the packaging and that kind of stuff. And we're continuing to evolve as we move along. Obviously, we're big in the health, into the clean foods, into the outdoors, those kind of things. And we're looking to make sure that our our branding has a lot of that in it, whether it's the newsletter that kind of comes through, or whether it's a camouflage packaging that we're using. That's the challenge, I think, is being consistent, because I don't come from a branding creative type side of things. And so I'm always looking and leveraging people I talk to say, does this look right? Does this make sense?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because then on top of all of it, you got to have the USDA sign off on the label and the ingredients and the order. And, there's that whole piece that the co-packer, and you have to work through and then have to coordinate with the package design. And then making sure the USDA bug is right. And it's one of the craziest coordinated processes, I swear. But I mean,
yeah.
It's a good business, co-packing and listening to the customers and walking your way through the hardships is definitely part of it. Let's talk about just in general life, fitness, things, and it doesn't have to just stay within food. Let's talk about mentors, role models, inspirations, because there's this entrepreneurial mind. There's this drive to do more, to give more, to do something more with your life by doing the beef jerky. Let's go back to just talk about mentors, individuals in your lives that had significant value to your growth.
Yeah, the couple of folks that come to mind for me, one was obviously Jeff Bezos and Amazon. The way they started from just selling books out of his house, right, and kind of grew that whole piece. Great story. Obviously, I could hope to get to that point. The Frisella brothers who own First Form. I don't know if First Form's out where you guys are at. Again, they've based in St. Louis.
Supplements. Yep.
Yeah. I take some of them too. I mean, it's just, again, seeing what they've done over, since 2009, they've just done a fantastic business in that whole market. When the one that I think really hits home for me, because it's kind of the military side of things, is Black Rifle Coffee. What's his name? Evan. I can't remember his last name, but he came out of the military, started the Black Rifle Coffee Company, and got a huge online presence, and he's moved into some retail locations and that kind of stuff. Those guys, I mean, show me it can be done. And I keep looking at, like, for example, the First Form, and then Black Rifle Coffee, is seeing how they've kind of done their niche, right? Trying to figure out what how they've done that niche, and then can I use that same niche with the health side of things, right, with the nutrition side of things, and moving forward with those. So those are the kind of the three that I look at as kind of the basis for kind of where I want to head, especially like I said, First Form with the Frisella brothers, and then Evan with the Black Rifle Coffee. And for me, it's like it's always been a challenge with nutrition, is it's trying to make it easy. And with the state of our foods in the U.S., I think it makes it a real challenge. We talk about jerky. Everybody thinks jerky, that's healthy. It's like, well, wait a minute. And then you educate people and I go, oh, I didn't know that. And there's a lot of other foods like that, but we gravitate towards things that are really easy to go after. Fast foods, chips, anything that's got a lot of flavor in it, but it's all processed flavor. And so kind of getting people to understand there's better alternatives out there if you just spend a few minutes to understand them. They don't have to be more expensive, but you do have to kind of change your mindset. And that's kind of where I want to end up, is, helping people change their mindset, not just with jerky, but with nutrition in general going forward.
Yeah, I think all three. Let's just talk about the three groups you mentioned here real quick. And Nick Bear, I think it's Nick Bear, maybe it's Nate Bear, I can't remember exactly, but he has a product. He's also an ex-military guy, built a protein company down in Austin, Texas. The problem is I get confused because whatever the one I'm not saying, Nate or Nick, is the one who's my fraternity brother in college, basically. And so they mix up in my head. But anyway, I'll think of the thing, the photographer that's now risen up in this company, very strong, qualified, entrepreneurial-minded individual named Trevor, used to do some of my photography on Instagram. If anyone looks at it, RMK Visions. But that's another individual to look at for you for mentorship, because he's built something from the ground up, also in the nutrition supplement space, and being a performer in the space, and just a little bit. Not saying one model's better than First Form or the other. It's just a different tweak on it that I think you might find interesting for sure. That's one. And the other one, I think, is just to connect the pieces for everyone. Jeff Bezos, what he was actually trying to do at the heart of it was, the problem with libraries is they didn't have access to the books he wanted. He had to wait for them, and it took him too long to ship them. So he's like, by the time I wait for it, I've on to the next book and I forgot about it. What if I ship it to them and people buy the books, because now they're paying for the convenience and they want to own the books and collect the books. And it was a crazy idea. And it started off at yard sales. Let's be honest. He was yard saling, going from yard sale to yard sale, getting books and then reselling them online. Right. So one man's trash, another man's treasure, another thing we talk about. But what he was doing, he was solving something. Okay. Black Rifle Coffee, the success of it happened because he looked at the model differently in the space and from a health perspective. And I think that that's a big one there. And still to this day, even roasters and everything that come up, there isn't the same understanding of building it from the ground up and building a unique industry in the process within coffee. It wasn't that he went competing with the other guys. He's like, hey, I'm going to do it in a healthy way, in this way, with this type of message, with energy, with this type of goal, versus a general, let's just drink coffee. That's that one. And then Andy Frisella and his brother, I can't remember his brother's name off the top. Sal, thank you. One of the things they did, and what Andy did with his business partner at Supplement Superstores, and then him and Ed Milet and Arete Syndicate, is the growing of individuals. And they took an industry that's, okay, I'm in the nutrition business. Like, we're supposed to be, these nutrition supplements are meant to grow the humans. So first was, okay, do we actually, when they're like, oh, we're not making any money, what do we really care about? What is this business really about? Oh, it's what everyone's missing. We're giving supplements to people to improve their lives, but we're really not investing anything else in improving their life. Not the quality of the supplements, not the time to give them how to use the supplements, not how to properly stack the supplements. So what the Frisellas did, and the other partners involved in that, is they created something which was the core of the whole thing. Like, bodybuilding is self-improvement. Well, why aren't we contributing to that? Why are we just selling them a supplement and say good luck? Or hoping they get it from a gym? What's missing here? Why isn't the supplements not working? Why aren't people staying with the product long term? What is missing there? And then provide the missing piece to build it. That's what we're talking about here in beef jerky. Also, with you, what's the missing thing? Actual healthy beef jerky. Right. True, healthy. Even the ones that are quote unquote healthy are skating a line. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. Okay. And it's important, like, as consumers, for the world, for the environment, for our legacy, for impact, that we understand how this flows downstream. Okay. Right. So what do I mean? It means really we're going upstream to find out the sourcing to look downstream. Oxymoron. But what's happening is we affect that upstream impact by the way we buy our food, the ingredients that we allow into the food that we're consuming, we bring into our homes. The less we spend on food and the more on luxury items, I'm talking about tangibles, the less likely we are leaving a good legacy behind us. It's that seriously. And go ahead. Well, no, you've done the research, you've done the background. It matters to you and your sourcing.
Right. Yeah. And I think, the comments you made about S2 is, when I go in there, always buying supplements, especially with the CrossFit competitions that I'm involved in, is they provide information, and education, not just, hey, I need this supplement. It's like, well, what are you trying to do with it? Right. And so they're inquisitive, and then they provide you the guidance and knowledge around it. I think that's one of the big things that S2 has really differentiated themselves about. But I think a good point is trying to move the needle towards the nutrition side of things and helping people make the right decisions. Again, educating people. And I think trying to figure out the right way to do that people listen is a huge challenge.
It's hard for me to even explain to people, and I still have a soda or something here and there. I think that's my cheat, or sometimes I eat snacks. I can eat sweets. I'm like Sour Patch Kids, man. Whoever invented those things should just be, it's just bad. Except when I'm doing 75 hard, then I can somehow stick to it, and which I am in right now. I am trying to get through that, trying to walk my steps and all that. Yeah. Yeah. It's breaks at work that help, otherwise when you're building businesses or running 2 jobs or 3 jobs or trying to do multiple things, or even as entrepreneur successfully before, when you're rebuilding, you start all over. I don't think people understand it. Taking the cheat way with putting a lot of money into something doesn't lead to success. So without experience, without knowing, there still has to be uncomfortability for the business to properly grow.
Yep, I know.
Go ahead.
No, I know somebody that recently just thought they could put some money at it and hire the right people, and they didn't know a lot about it and about people or the business, and it just ended up and it was a real ended up being a disaster. So I think you've got to have, at least in my experience from my, when I was in the military, when I'm leading programs and projects, is you've got to have an understanding or some knowledge around what you're doing. I'm first one to admit that there's a lot of stuff I don't know about this industry yet, especially as we go into, like I said, the grocery retail chain, that whole area. But I've got enough grounding in the rest of it that I'm willing to learn and, look for guidance in those other areas. So having some kind of experience, I think, is absolutely key.
Yeah, let's anchor this whole thing real quick, because I think this is important for your brand. I think it's important for your story. And I'm going to give you as much time as you want to talk about this, because I want to truly anchor this. Let's talk about the discipline, the obedience. You're a CrossFitter. You're into nutrition. It's a lifestyle for you. It's not just diet. Okay. Let's talk about the discipline, getting there, the nutrition, getting there, the journey to get there, how you live, what this means for you in it, and sort of the emotional, spiritual, mental, physical growth that has taken place in you because of it. I know that's a very large question. That's why I'm giving you as much time as you want today. You're my last recording today. So I want to give you time for it, because one of the things that attracted me to your story is the grit, is your background, the discipline, the obedience that you had in the military, but you've carried that into your professional career. You've carried it into this brand, and you've stayed true where a lot of people would have pivoted or bent when co-packers pressured them to go with lesser quality ingredients. I'll put it that way. Let's talk about all of that. It's yours as long as you want.
Yeah, that's a big one. Where to start? I think grit is a lot of it. As you said, you're always, you dipping into, something else, snacks wise. So it's always been a huge effort for me around nutrition, whether it was back in the military or today, and being able to, and it's a struggle to stay consistent because we have so many opportunities to not be consistent with your nutrition, with your workouts, with those kind of things and what I have to do is I have to find that thing that draws me to it. Like, if I miss a workout, it's almost addictive. I've got to have that outlet to reduce the stress, to get the endorphins going. And it's amazing how much different I am from when I walk in the door to where I walk out of the door. And then being able to, leverage the nutrition as I go down the path to figure out more and more about how to improve the recovery. Because I know, again, all the basics, the fundamentals of, workouts, the fundamentals of nutrition, and then building the what I'm going to call it, the wherewithal, the grit to be able to kind of maintain it going forward, even in the downtimes. If you're sick, you got to say, well, this is for the long term. I'm not doing this for this one competition. I'm not doing this for the 1 year. I'm looking at it for a lifetime. I'm not exactly young anymore, but I've still got a lot of years left that I want to be able to do the things I want to do. And so I've got to remember that just because I've, sick today, I can't work out, it's not the end of things. So I think that translates, I think, a lot into the businesses. There's a lot of times I come up and I go, and I'm doing the financials. It's like, oh man, we shouldn't have made that decision, or this is the direction we got to go. And, just pick yourself up and say, okay, let's set the goals. Let's align the guardrails. Let's make things happen in this direction. So that's what we're really doing this year is, talk with Renee. We came up with some, major goals we're looking at to kind of drive the business forward. And, come the fourth quarter, we'll make an evaluation and say, what do we need to do differently to really drive this business? Not sure what if that kind of answers your question, but that's kind of where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. It does answer the question for sure. The Let's talk lastly about the relationship. You guys talk about communication, the business communicating it through it freely. I mean, that's not always easy for a couple running a business together. You have family, kids, like there's a dynamic there. Like, how do you guys manage it? How do you find success in it? I think any advice you could give that way, because I think there are a lot of husband, wife, family entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, for us, it is a challenge because there's sometimes, I'll say something. Kind of my background is I'm just short and sweet and direct. And so sometimes I'll say something and it's like, well, I don't like that. Instead of providing a little more context around why I don't like that. And, and it's just being flexible enough to realize that, oh, wait a minute, we need to be more descriptive in our conversations, because a lot of times I'll be in the middle of my thought, thinking about something, and I'll put it out there with no context around it. So we've learned that at least for me, I need to put a context around my question or my statement so that she can interpret it correctly.
Yeah, we've been working on updating our descriptions on the website now for the different products. And it's been interesting with, okay, I'll build a description and send it to him because he's been, working his day job. And then 2 or 3 days later, he'll come up with a question and I've already passed that whole idea. So it's not anywhere in my realm. And I'll look at him like he's crazy. It's like, what are you talking about? So yeah, we often have to sit there and go, oh, okay, wait a minute. You're talking about that specific email or text. And, we're sitting, my office is in the basement, his is on the first floor. So even though we're in the same house, we don't see each other until like dinner time sometimes.
And I think the other thing too is that, we got to remember when we say something, it's not personal. It's just, that's our thought right then.
Right.
So, it can definitely be some stressful times around the Burkart household.
Especially with 2 project managers trying to get their way.
Yeah, I was thinking of that when you guys first said it, but yeah, there's a lot of managing things, but I think you guys have found a good way of doing it. Is there anything you guys want to share with the audience? And also, where can they find you guys online? How can they buy your products? All that sort of thing.
It just, in summary, I think really we have to stay focused and work on being consistent both in our lives and in our business. There's a lot of moving pieces, so being able to crack all the moving pieces really helps from our backgrounds in project management. But I think from our mission is educate people about nutrition, especially around the jerky space, and helping them to be have better lives. You can find us at bigmikesjerky.com. We've always got some sales going on, different things going on, news articles. You go out there, you can log in and become a subscriber to our newsletter. We're also available on Amazon.com and soon to be on StreamFit. There is it's a gym management service, and they've got a store associated with it. So we'll be out there hopefully within the next 30 to 60 days. So new announcement with you guys.
Very cool. And I know I said it was my last question, but I do really have now another one. Project management, you're managing humans, you're managing goals, you're managing expectations. Similar with trying to get a co-packer, you have to make sure they're hitting the expectations, the timelines that you hope they're doing, and hope they are managing those timelines. Like, let's just talk about that dynamic there, managing timelines, managing humans, getting humans to hit those timelines and those goals, because I think it's important for the audience.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty lucky with our current co-packer. They've been fantastic. So we've had some snafus where I think it was last year, we put a big marketing order in for some of our original jerky that we were going to put in the bags for the Legends Championship competition in Phoenix last year. And the first shipment they sent us, it was all the jerky was chopped up. It was like, oh. No, I mean, we're giving this to, a bunch of, CrossFit athletes who are very much in nutrition, and we want our best product going forward. So, we're having that conversation with the manufacturer. Can you get us a new batch? What do we do with the existing batch? It's about that, just having that direct conversation and then having the right relationship. So we're having to be, good partners with the CEO, who's also our sales guy, and then the plant manager and the samples guys. We communicate a lot. We have good conversations. If we get some product issues, we can reach out to them. We can have that direct conversation. Same thing is, and I know Renee's been busy, having conversations with the different market coordinators where, it's not just the market itself. We may have to work with the city or the county to get licenses and those kind of things. So we talk about those things all the time about, okay, she's got this piece taken care of and I have confidence that she can do it. If she's got a problem, then, she escalates it up and we talk about what we can do. So I think with people, what I've always found is I want to be really direct, but I've learned I can't be 100% direct the way I want to be. But to have a good conversation with individuals about what your mission is, what you want to do, where you're headed, and get their buy-in. If they don't align, then you agree to kind of move on with the next person. But I think generally people seem to align with kind of our mission, our vision of where we want to go, and they're very supportive.
One more time where they can find you guys online.
Yep. You can find us at bigmikesjerky.com. You can also find us at Amazon. And then you can find us in the next, hopefully 30, 60 days at streamfit.com.
Yeah, there's so many things. I'm going to reach out to you guys. I was in the beef jerky space for a while. Had some major failures there and some successes, but it was an interesting ride. And I definitely was in the all natural space, paleo, Whole30, within those areas as well. And as a CrossFit athlete at the time, stepdaughter, and she had a boyfriend who then became her fiance. He's a CrossFit athlete. They're both professional CrossFit athletes, own a gym out here in Denver. But all of it sort of meshed in that world in that way, me being in food since I was 18, in health food for hospitals, things like that. So, what interestingly happens, I think for everyone to understand is everyone's like, I'm fine. But you don't realize that you're running on like 83 octane or whatever, or maybe even 79 octane when you could be running on 93 to 100. Yeah. It's just a thing for everyone to understand. Go on.
Yeah, when you get your your supplements dialed in, your nutrition dialed in, your sleep dialed in, it's amazing how you can wake up and the world feels different. And if I have a day, where my mom's Italian and she loves to bake and everything, and she'll make these pecan sweet rolls, and I'll plow through.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
And the next day is like, oh, man, I'm just, not feeling it. But, to your point, when you're dialed in and you're running at, 90 plus octane, it's a different world.
Yeah, it's one of the things that it's particularly attracted me about your brand. Also, spending the time in beef jerky, I know how hard it is to navigate. I know it's one of these weird food industries that's just, there's giants. There's like a very few giants that buy up the small guys. So it's a very interesting thing that happens. And if anyone looks, a lot of the natural jerkies that have ever existed that have done well just sort of get bought up and de-exist. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's the strategy.
Our biggest challenge right now is when we look at, we talk to like the major local stores, is they like to work local with local brands. So that's kind of a niche we've got. But when you look at the jerky aisle, it's all, pretty much all of one brand. And because of like all the chemicals and other things they put in the products, they're are a bit cheaper than where we're at. And so that's one of the things we struggle with is what's the right price point? Because we do establish ourselves as kind of a gourmet, a boutique brand and product, and we're not the mass market stuff. So trying to differentiate that stuff in our branding and our marketing is been a challenge, especially when we're talking to, like I said, the supermarkets and those kind of things.
Yeah. And the audience or anyone in general, one of the things that's interesting about beef jerky is everyone already assumes it's healthy just because it's beef jerky. They don't bother to read the label. It's the craziest thing to me when you're trying to say, oh, I have a healthy beef jerky. All beef jerky is healthy. What? No, it's not. Like, it doesn't matter what accent I throw on there. It's all the same response. You know, city slicker, person in the country, person out of the United States, does not matter. My own accent. There was this association that because it's beef jerky, it's healthy. I even had it myself in the 90s, maybe even early 2000s, a little bit before it hit me over the head with a sledgehammer. So I just think that that's important for everyone to understand that just it's just not. It's like calling fruit cup in a can healthy and ignoring the sugar syrup that's in there. Yeah. So, you know, it's a little bit like that, but we still associate. I mean, I can't tell you how many of those syrup cups I had in my lunch growing up in the 80s because that was my healthy fruit snack. It met the food triangle. So, you know, we just need to change our lenses a little bit, guys, and understand and look at labels. That's the important part here. Supporting businesses, entrepreneurs that are trying to clean up the food sources. That's also important. Why? Because our dollars don't have more impact. We don't have more influence or impact in anything else we do than by the way we eat. That's important. And then as entrepreneurs, we have no larger impact and influence than any other individuals on the planet in the way we touch our vendors, our support systems, accountants, lawyers, PR, advertising, marketing, whatever you want to call it. Employees, families, and vendors, families. And then also the way the dollars filter through our businesses, through our employees. What are we instilling in them as core values for health, for their families, for 2 or 3 generations potentially down the road? It matters. And at any point in time when we hear this thing going on right now, anyone can change a generation. And it's even biblical. Bible is that any one individual can be chosen or step up and change the generational pattern or sin pattern. Okay. It's the same thing here. We just need to be the businesses, be the leaders to show them that transition is possible. We need to live by it in our businesses, by our core values and what I'm talking about, and show it's possible. And when we believe it's possible, we see it's possible for ourselves, because I can say that Mike and Renee believe it's possible. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't believe it, and living it. It matters, guys.
It does.
And so, go ahead.
Yeah, look, no, just it matters, and we just try to make a difference in the small world that we touch, and hopefully it replicates itself outward.
And if we don't care, no one else does. I got to be honest with you guys. I've been around a long time, and over the last 3 years, as I got out of running businesses and interviewing more people about businesses and trying to figure it out, not everyone is as giving as the individuals and entrepreneurs that come on this show to share their story to help grow the world around them. Let's just say that. Yeah. And so that's in the individuals that are investing in their communities and in good farming products and practices, and in good relationships with their customers, and good relationships with their bodies, their souls, the world around them. That these matter. These are the important ones that we should support. It shouldn't be just a financial decision. And I get it. Everyone wants the large whatever on Instagram that's popular. It's important, but we need to look a little bit more behind what's behind it. I'm not saying there aren't great entrepreneurs behind those products. I'm just saying take a look.
Yeah. So definitely.
I didn't realize that you had a jerky background. So
yeah.
Drop me your email, drop me your address, and I'd love to get your insight into our products. So we'll send you some samples.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that for sure. And like I said, I think anyone in the audience should try your product. Blazing a trail like you're blazing is not an easy one. And it doesn't always go well. And a lot of people start taking shortcuts and they lose the whole reason they started the beef jerky brand in the first place, which was a natural alternative. So. Yep. I'd love to.
The whole purpose that people eat jerky, right, is they think it's natural and it's healthy. So
yeah, and it's easy snack. It's portable, so
yeah.
Oh yeah.
The joke is, all our bags have a little Ziploc on the top. You tear off the tab, and then it's got a Ziploc.
Yeah.
And the joke is, I don't know why you have a Ziploc, why you have a resealable bag, because it's all single serving.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That doesn't matter if it's the 3-pound bag or the 2-pound bag. And I just go through this thing now in my house where I don't get near the open jerky, turkey, or beef jerky bags because I will eat it all in one sitting, even if it's a 5-pound bag. And so when it was being made in our facilities, and I'll share this with the audience, one of the greatest things was getting to try it all the time. It was a dream come true. But it's an extremely hard process, and you have to have the right individuals in your co-packing facilities that understand and have the same love for beef jerky that the clients have. That's an important piece. I think that's an important piece for anyone out there looking, check all the boxes, but make sure there's a love there for your product or producing that type of product as much as you love your product. Because it's important for a business matching. And it's hard for me to explain it because not only have I seen it in things that I've needed co-packing for, but also in my own packing and hiring of employees and expertise and stuff like that. The passion, the dedication, the loving of what they're doing in particular is way more important sometimes than the scholarly background that comes along with it. It's just the nature of the beast. And we need to weigh all of those things if we want success. Because I think a lot of times, and I'm going to anchor this as we end it, is the mismatch between a co-packer and the person trying to produce their product is of non-tangible things. And that rift, that disagreement in direction doesn't help both brands move forward or build each other. Because if the beef jerky brand does well, the co-packer does well. If there's not an understanding of that by everyone, and there's a relationship and a passion towards doing that and even building an industry, because when two work together, even in a transactional relationship like this, they're building an industry, particularly in the healthier side of things. Yep. It's important for everyone to understand. So I just want to say thank you guys. I appreciate just the reminder of the lessons. Yes, reach out to me. Anyone in the audience, please like, share, respond, whatever you guys want to do. Subscribe to the episode. If you want to support the entrepreneurs, go to their Instagram, order the beef jerky. If you're a beef jerky fan, trust me, anything that's healthy, clean, jerky, you guys want to try it out there. Even in your restaurants, you want to support these type of businesses. It's important. I mean, I've seen some creative things with some beef jerky partnerships since I was a part of it on the healthier side, in restaurants and burgers and chicken sandwiches and all sorts of cool stuff. So there's a lot more out there, guys, even on the commercial side to be explored there. That's all I have to say. I love you guys. I appreciate all the support in the audience. And as we relaunch, all the support of the entrepreneurs. It's been amazing, and I do hear you guys. I am trying to get all the educational information out to you guys, cross-reference with the podcast, my experience, academic information that's out there, and then the industries themselves. So we are putting that out there. It is out there in Gorilla Brave, and we are doing the networking events and summits we tested over the last 2 years and trying to bring that to everyone, because I find that the education stuff is great, but once you guys can relay it off each other, have each other to bounce it off of, a speaker to spark a conversation, some sort of facilitator, that's where we have the most growth. I've seen the most growth in those businesses after they do just one event, multiple locations, right connections, growing each other. Maybe one's a chef, one's more of a food systems person. They benefit each other. One helps the other. One's stuck in creativity, one's stuck in standardization. So it helps to be around individuals that are in our industries that are opposite of us in some ways. So thank you, everyone. I love you guys. We're out.